Good morning, everybody. Let's talk about what we do for opening procedures here at Fluffy Feather Farm. Okay, so what are opening procedures? First of all, we're gonna feed and make sure everybody has water. Secondly, we're gonna check for any issues or problems we might have on the farm. Now, all of these things we do today happen every single day on our farm, rain or shine, holidays, everything, it doesn't really matter. They do change from time to time. During the winter, it takes a lot longer to do opening procedures than it does on a nice spring, summer day like it is today. But we're gonna take you through and show you kind of everything we do. So we're gonna start on the south side of the property, and we're gonna work our way towards the north side of the property, and we've broken everything into sections. So section one is our cows. So we're gonna go through and we're gonna feed and check all of our cows. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing is that we have prepped everything the night before. Jim was nice enough to put everything together for me so I could make this video in the morning. So normally what we would do is start at our pole barn and we would prep all of these things. We have grain for all the cows. We have hay for all of the cows, and then we also have hay upstairs that we're gonna feed the cows too. So I'm gonna kind of show you how we do this and how it's broken up. So 2 of these buckets are for our adult cows, 1 is for our calves, 3/4 bucket here is for our bulls, and then we have a cow inside right now that's just gonna get her own bucket. So we're gonna go through and kind of show you how we do it, how we feed, and where we start. So we're gonna start with our calves right now. So while the calves are eating here, we're looking for a couple of different things. First, that everybody comes to eat. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Second thing, we're looking for any sort of issues that might have happened overnight. Looking at fencing, we're looking at all the gates, make sure they're still closed, everything's operational. We're checking on mom here, Reba, and her little baby right here, Rosie. Want to make sure that everything's going fine with the 2 of them. And then we're looking for any kind of health issues. So did anybody get injured by chance? Does anybody look different than normal? We want to make sure that we're kind of observing everybody, because this is the one time where they're kind of all in the same spot during the day. And they like grain so much that we can walk up to them and kind of look around and make sure everything's okay. Okay, so everybody looks fine today. No issues with our calves. Let's move on to our adults. Okay, so as you can imagine, our adults are much bigger than our calves and a little more intimidating. So when we have staff here, we encourage them to feed over the fence because it makes it much easier and much safer for everybody. So we line up our feed troughs along the fence here, but as the day goes on, everybody kind of gets excited, moves everything around. So we move everything back to where it was in the morning, and then we'll feed over the top. I'll show you how that's done. So as you notice, we have multiple bins for our adults. We actually have 3. There's one behind me too. We have 1 right there. And then we have 2 here on the other side. So the reason we have 3 different bins is because we have cows that all have different personalities. So we have our more alpha aggressive cows that want to eat first and be in control. And then we have our less dominant cows that wait until everybody's done. So we kind of spread them out because sometimes the little itty bitty, less aggressive ones don't get anything if the bigger adults are really hungry that day. So we spread it all out so they can all eat at the same time and they're not on top of each other. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna feed hay to the adults because I'm here with the side-by-side and I have it with me, so it's much easier to feed these guys. The calves that we did earlier get hay from the hayloft, so I do that later on. But these guys are gonna get hay, and then I'm also gonna feed the micro minis at the same time because they're right in this area and they get really excited when the adults eat, so we feed them together. Okay, so everybody's got hay. Our micro minis here have hay right in front of me and our adults have hay behind. And now we're gonna go feed hay over at the barn. About mid-morning, it gets too hot to wear a sweatshirt anymore, so we gotta adjust our wardrobe a little bit too as we do opening procedures. Maybe we do one of those cool like Baywatch moments now where like I whip my sweatshirt off. right. Okay, back to feeding. So right below me here are all our calves. And they are diligently waiting for some hay.
Hey guys, who wants some hay?
Here comes some more. Sorry. Okay, so the other thing we came up with are holes in our hay loft. So when we move these bales of hay here, you can see that underneath we have hay feeders. So right down through that hole is our hay feeder. So any animals that might be in the barn or have access to the barn can use those additionally as hay sources. So usually we use those if it's raining or it's cold or it's wet outside, so we don't throw hay outside on the ground and get it all wet. Today we're just gonna kind of fill them up a little bit so that throughout the day the cows can graze and come in and out of the barn. Okay, next on the list is checking out our cats' food and water supply. So we got water here for the cats, we got food here for our cats, and the only reason we have this upstairs is because we have a bunch of kittens right now. There they are. See them up there? So in the future, our barn cats roam and they have food downstairs and they drink out of the cow's water. But for now, we keep them up here while they're tiny, just so they can get used to the area and make sure that they're safe. So you might be thinking, boy, we didn't fill water for anybody. That's because all of our animals have automated water systems. So we have these autofill buckets here. They're hooked up, they work great, especially during the summer. During the winter, it's a little more challenging because we have to direct all of the cows back into the barn to make sure that they get water because our barn is heated. So that's why if you look around, you'll see we have these plastic slats on the doors. They're pulled aside now because it's summertime, but during the winter, we fold the slats down and we turn our heater on, which is over there, and we heat our barn area. It's a little bit for us, but mostly we heat it so that the water in here does not freeze. So we have 6 different openings inside of our barn. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So during the winter, we can have 6 separate pastures feed into our barn. And these areas inside of our barn are specifically designed in the winter to be water stations. And that's pretty much it. So we heat the barn, we put the water in here, and then we direct the cows all inside. And the only challenging thing we had with this was initially putting up these slat curtains. The cows didn't really understand it. So we got past that. All the cows are now trained on how to walk through, and it works out awesome. The other thing that's really helpful with these slats, even during the summer, is that they keep the flies out. So they help with flies not coming into the barn, which is awesome. Okay, so you might be asking about cleanup. During the summertime, our cows spend 95% of their time outside, so there's not a lot of indoor cleanup in the barn. However, when we do need to clean up the inside, if there's a cow or somebody that spends the night in there, or they're hanging out in there during the day because it's raining, we dump everything in this dump bin. It hooks up to our ATVs, and it actually has an automatic lift on it, so we go and dump it in our compost pile, and then we bring it back here and set it up in front of the barn. It works out great for us. Wintertime, this fills up about once a day. We have to empty it. Summertime, we're looking at more like once a week we have to empty it, so it's a lot easier. All right, our next stop is our bulls. So they're a little farther away from the barn, so let's go get them some grain and some hay. Okay guys, here's our bulls. So we have 5 bulls in this section, so we're gonna feed them grain, and then I'm gonna go give them some hay in their enclosure over there. Our bulls really like grain a lot, so it's a great way to distract them. So what you can see is we often use grain to kind of distract the animals while we're doing other things. So we always feed grain first. So these guys are distracted. I can go through the gate. I can do some other things in here if I need to. Their hay is in this structure inside, so it's always covered, it's always dry. This is a portable livestock structure, so we can actually lift this up with our tractor and drag it across the field wherever we want. And then behind me here is their water. Go ahead and check their water, make sure everything's good with that, and we'll move on to check on animals in the pole barn. Okay, good to go. Okay, so we're over here at our pole barn. It's behind me. This is our pole barn, okay? So this is where we keep all of our supplies and all of our food and materials that we need to operate the farm. Now behind me here is our ISO area. So when animals come to the farm, the first place they go is this area behind us. They can't touch any other animals, they can't access any other animals, and they're close to kind of our base area of operations so we can keep an eye on them. Right now, it is temporary holding for our goats. So we have Nigerian dwarf goats. Those guys are in here for the moment while we're working on finishing our goat barn, and we need to check on them and make sure that they have food and water. Goats are pretty easy, by the way. Food, water. Good. Okay, so this is our pole barn. This is kind of where we keep everything that we need to care for the animals. So we have bedding for the chickens, we have more protein buckets, we have grain, we have chicken food behind me. Everything we need to operate on a daily basis is stored in here, away from the animals and under lock and key, so that there's no chance that anybody can get into anything that they're not supposed to. So our pole barn is also used for any special needs animal that might be in here. So right now, that's our baby chicks. So right now, all of our baby chicks are in here. You can see they're getting to be bigger and they're about to go out in the chicken coop with all of our other adult chickens. But while they were babies, we decided to keep them in here. It's heated, it has access to water, and it's safe for them. So we also have to check their food, their water, and make sure there's no issues with any of our chickens. So that completes all of the opening procedures on the south side of the property. Now we're gonna head over to the north side. Okay, so our first stop on the north side of the property is Donkey Land. So let's go feed some donkeys, come on. So you remember what I talked about? We look for issues in the morning? Well, the donkeys got into all of the cleanup items last night and destroyed all of them. So we gotta put all those back. Nice. All right, so the first thing we do with donkeys is we feed them their grain product, which is called a horse ration. Donkeys get a very, very small amount of ration. They're in the horse family, so we give them just a little tiny supplement of a grain product, and then they eat hay only. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so if you have chickens like we do in your donkey area, the first thing you gotta do is distract your chickens. Okay, then after the chickens are distracted, you can feed the donkeys. Okay, so like we talked about with the cows, while the donkeys are eating their grain product, while they're eating this horse ration, this is what it looks like, by the way. And they get maybe a quarter cup each, that's it. While they're eating that, we're gonna go and feed hay so that we can get that done while they're distracted. Let's go. Okay, so we keep all our hay in Donkey Land. We refill it once or twice a week. But the nice thing is that we keep it up top there, the donkeys can't get to it, and then we feed down here in these hay feeders where this silly chicken is right now. Now the thing about donkeys is that they can be overfed. So we have about 9 donkeys right now, and we feed only about 3/4 of a bale, because the worst thing you can do is overfeed a donkey. So donkeys really don't need that much food. They're desert animals, and this is enough for all of them for the whole day, really. Okay, so Chocolate and her little baby here, Chip, get their own hay and their own food because they're separate from everybody else. So we got their hay all set up. Chocolate here got some grain a second ago, and now we need to go check their water. So they have all of their separate setup. We have a weaning pen here where we keep all of our babies and mamas. So see our water here? It's kind of disgusting looking, honestly, because the chickens also drink out of it. So we're gonna dump it and get them some new stuff. Okay, so after their water's all filled up, we're pretty much done with the donkeys. The only thing we have to go back and do is clean up all their bowls once they're done eating. Okay, so donkeys are done. Now we gotta go and check on our adult chickens. Okay, so we are inside our adult chicken coop. And there's not really a ton to do in here because most of our stuff is automated. So we gotta check on the food, check on the water, and then we flip all of the bedding. Okay, so the reason that we flip the bedding is because we want to make sure that no excess moisture builds up inside the chicken coop. Right now, our chicken coop has a concrete floor. So you can see down here, this is concrete. It's not really ideal. We inherited this chicken coop. So what we're doing is we're adding a section outside that's gonna have a dirt floor where we're gonna do a deep litter method of self-composting. And once we get that all set up, we'll do a video and show you how that works. Okay, water cups are good. Our food supply in the hopper here is good. Our chicken coop is clean and there's no issues, so let's move on to ducks. Our duck section is down in the woods, so let's head over there and check on our ducks and make sure everything's okay. Okay, so this is inside of our duck coop. So our duck coop is pretty simple. It's got plywood on the inside, it's insulated. We check their food, which is down here below me. We check for eggs, and then we flip the bedding just like we did inside of the chicken coop. Okay, so sometimes we use a rake to flip this, but it's so dry today that I'm just gonna do it with my feet. We flip the bedding in the duck coop for the same reason that we flip it in the chicken coop. We want to keep it always turning so that the moisture doesn't build up in here, and ducks are obviously wet animals, so we got to keep it turning so it dries out more evenly. Okay, the last thing we do here in the morning is we come outside, we check the ducks, we make sure that there's no issues, everybody's here. We check the culverts down here to make sure that nothing's clogged. So we want to make sure our water is flowing through duckland nicely. And that's the last part of duckland. So food, water, flip the bedding, check maintenance items, and now we're gonna move on back to the pole barn. Okay, so we're back at the pole barn, and that brings us full circle on opening procedures for the day. Now, obviously, a lot of things were prepped for me today. Jim did a great job of putting everything together so I didn't have to gather everything in the morning. I would say generally on a normal day where there are no issues, which is rare, opening procedures can take anywhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours on our farm. And that's from the beginning of feeding our cows all the way through doing goats. We feed our bulls, obviously they're part of our cows. We make sure that we get our donkeys done. We go and we flip the chicken bedding, and we do our ducks. So all of those combined take about 2 hours. Now the prep for that I didn't show you takes about a half hour to get everything together. And then throughout the day, we're also doing other stuff to help people on the next day. So there's a lot of other things that happen on a maintenance schedule that happens on a weekly or a monthly basis, like chicken bedding gets flipped out, or the duck bedding gets changed, or we're also doing other maintenance types things throughout the month and throughout the year. So that stuff obviously you didn't see today. This is mainly food and water. So again, the most important things we check for are food. We check to make sure everybody has water. We check to make sure nobody has any issues. There's no health issues or concerns. No baby animals were born. And we check on health issues other than that, like did somebody get injured? Did somebody get out last night? Is there a problem that we need to address immediately? Or do we even have to call the vet? All of those things we look for in the morning. It's not just food and water, it's our constant animal care and maintenance of our property to make sure that everybody is healthy, happy, and being taken care of. So thanks for joining us today. Subscribe below, follow us on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, all of those places. We'd love to see you and keep up with everything that we're doing here at Fluffy Feather Farm.